All right, guys, today we are working on the valve adjustment on a '08 Suzuki M50. Now, you'll see the bike's on a lift. You don't have to do this at home. I just put it on a lift because it's easier to keep it upright and stable. And I'm going to be doing a couple other things to it in addition to the valves. The lift just makes life easier. Although, notice the ratchet straps. It is very important that when you're using a lift on a motorcycle, you have it secured to the lift so you don't accidentally tip it off and push the bike over. I skipped a lot of the boring stuff, for example, getting the tank off and the seats off and things like that. Every bike's going to be a little bit different, but this was more or less just a couple of bolts you had to pull out. Search your specific make and model on YouTube, and you'll be able to find what you need to get that done. Next thing we need to do is to get these trim pieces off, pull out the spark plugs, gain access to those valve covers, and we're going to pull out the inspection port here and the cover on the generator. This is going to allow us to manually turn the crank until we can get the cylinders at top dead center. Okay, so we are doing the valve adjustment, and it's going to be very difficult to see in there, but what we're going to do is rotate the crankshaft through the generator cover until we see an RT line up in that little hole. And we're not going to get the camera and my face in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and slowly turn. We're always going to turn in this direction because we don't want to push against the starter clutch. And this is why we remove the spark plugs, because it makes turning the motor so much more simple. You can stop it. All right, so you probably can't see in there, but there's an RT with a little line between it, and that line should correspond with this little divot right here and a halfway point of that inspection window. That means that our rear cylinder, the one we're going to check first, the piston is at top dead center, all the way at the top of its compression stroke, and all the valves should be closed. All right, here comes the fun part. This is the valve adjustment. So on this model, we use these bolts here to adjust the valve lash. These bolts lock it in place. You undo those, and then you got this little square peg here. You rotate that out, and what you're trying to do is set the distance based on your shop manual between the bottom of this threaded portion, which you're probably not going to be able to see too terribly well, and the top of the valve body itself. So you see that part with the yellow spring, that little metal disc on top of that, that's where your feeler gauge is going to go. It's going to go between that and the threaded portion. Well, I forgot to record an ending in the garage because it was hot and miserable, but that's pretty much it, guys. Just repeat the process for the other valves. You might have to, well, you're going to have to move your crank to the top dead center position for the front cylinder, but tighten everything down, put it back together, and you're done.